Hi, are you familiar with the whipped coffee that's been so popular all over TikTok especially? Well, I'm not a TikToker, but my daughter, my 16-year-old is, and a week or two ago she said, Mom, you've got to learn about this whipped coffee. And so Grace started showing me exactly how to make it. And actually we both really enjoy it a ton. So I'm going to make it very quickly today, but what we learned while talking about whipped coffee, because I said, oh, it's Dalgona, it's a Korean coffee, and Grace said, no, it's a frappe, Greek coffee. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about all three of those and how we make ours. Grace came up with a dairy-free version that we really love. So I'm starting with really hot water. This is just 2 tablespoons of hot water. You can use hot tap water. I did boil this just to make sure it would be hot while I was doing this, doing the video. So I'm going to measure out 1.5 tablespoons of instant coffee. Now we like to use instant espresso powder. So if you're using regular coffee, you might want to use 2 tablespoons, but we've reduced it. In fact, Grace usually just puts 1 tablespoon. I like to put 1.5. And that's one of the beautiful things about the whipped coffee. Once you make the whip, there are a lot of things you can do with it, more than just making a drink. So there's the whipped coffee. Again, we use the espresso powder. It does come in decaf, and you can use regular instant coffee. You don't want to use coffee grounds though, instant coffee. And then sweetener. Now, even if you don't put sweetener in your coffee, you need to use some sweetener in this, because the sweetener is what lets you whip it up. So I'm going to put in, and I'm using my Sucrin monk fruit blend, I'm going to put 1.5 teaspoons of that. So 1.5 teaspoons of sweetener, use your preferred sweetener, 1.5 teaspoons of the instant coffee, I'm using espresso powder, and I put 2 tablespoons of water. So 1.5 tablespoon, 1.5 tablespoon, and then 2 of water. Now, when you whip this up, you can use a lot of different things. Grace likes to use a little milk frother. It's a little battery-operated frother. It reminds me of a dentist drill. It will work, but it takes a little bit longer. She's incredibly patient to use this. You can also use the whip on your immersion blender if you have it. If you don't have either of those things, you can use a regular whisk, but you want to put it in a different bowl. When we use either of these things, we like to use just a cylinder shape, and that way, and you want it only wide enough to fit the whip into it so that you get all the liquid. There's not a lot of liquid in there, as you can see, so you really got to be able to get down in there. Now, some people say they've used the whip attachment on their stand mixer, but you'd really have to double or triple the recipe to be able to do that. And this whip will keep in the refrigerator for 24, 36 hours. We never use it we never try to preserve it that long. So I'm going to start this, and you'll see you have to hold on tightly. But notice where it is now in terms of volume and the color. It's a very dark color, and you'll see there's maybe an inch or so of liquid. Once we start whipping, it's going to get much, much larger. And we're going to go for several minutes. In fact, I usually try to sing like a happy birthday song or the ABC song while I'm doing it so that I have a general idea of how long I've been whipping. So watch how it changes. I'm only moving it slightly just to make sure I get plenty of air in there. Do be careful, because the whip will come out and go all over the room. Ask me how I know. It gets louder like that, doesn't it? You can see I've only been doing it for not even a minute, and it's starting to whip. It's getting thick. The volume has increased significantly. It's not quite there yet. When you can turn it kind of upside down and it still holds its shape, it's starting to get there, and it is starting to get there. So I'm going to do just a little bit more. You can also see the color is different. It went from almost like a black to more of a mocha look, and I haven't added anything besides the sweetener, the coffee, and the water. And you'll see how it's starting to stick to the whip. When it's starting to peak like that, it's almost ready. And I'll show you just a bit of what it looks like. It reminds me of whipped cream, just not a very stiff whipped cream. And that's essentially what we want to make. We're trying to make like a bit of a whipped cream to put on our coffee. So undo just a bit more. And I think that's probably about perfect. Okay, and I'm gonna set this aside for just a second while I get ready to make the coffee. Now, I had mentioned that you don't have to put this in a coffee drink, and you don't. You can use that whip like a whipped cream. So imagine like a chocolate mug cake, and you put that on it like a dollop of whipped cream. It is a little bit bitter, especially if you use espresso, but for those of us who haven't been doing low carb or have been doing low carb or keto for a long time, it really does have a nice flavor. And you can add a couple drops of liquid sweetener to it if you'd like. What happens with the granulated is it does tend to get gritty if you add a lot, but you can add some liquid sweetener. Now, what we're going to put in this, I've got my cup, my glass of ice, and this is my big glass, and I've got a little more than half filled with ice, maybe about 60% of the glass filled with ice. I've already measured out 4 ounces of almond milk. This is just unsweetened almond milk. And then I want to use another 3 ounces of something else. Now you can use coconut milk. I could use all almond milk, but Grace and I really enjoy this better half, no sugar added, almond cream and almond milk, and it already has some vanilla in it. Not a product endorsement. I don't get paid to do this. I wish they'd just like send me product, but we love this stuff in coffee. And so I'm going to fill it up the rest of the 3 ounces. So I'm going to have 7 ounces, 4 ounces of almond milk, and then add 3 ounces of the creamer. And you can see how thick it is. It's a little thicker than almond milk, which also helps the texture. Now, I've described this like a coffee milkshake, and that's what it tastes like to me once you add the froth. So the traditional way to do it is you've got the ice, you pour this into it, and then you put the whip on top. Now, Grace would tell you that for a Greek frappe, that you put the whip on top and then you're supposed to shake it, not stir. So I guess we're breaking the tradition a little bit with the Greek version. That's what we try to say we make a frappe. But look at this whip. Isn't that gorgeous? And I could put it in something if I really want it to be pretty. I could put it in a bag and pipe it up. But you can kind of see how it's standing up there. And it makes a really, really pretty drink. Especially when you put the spoon in and you stir it just a bit. Look at the volume. That more than doubled in volume from what I started with, and it was so simple. Oh, also, one of the versions we've been playing with is mocha. And so if you really love, if you're missing kind of the drinks at that place, you can add cocoa powder. I added just a little over a teaspoon, maybe a heaping teaspoon, to the coffee mix to make a mocha flavor, and Grace enjoys that too. Like I said, you may want to reduce the amount of coffee if you're using espresso because it is stronger. So you just put it on top like that, and again, we're kind of breaking, and what's interesting to me is it's called a frappe in Greece, it's called beaten coffee in India, and it's called the Dalgona coffee in Korea. And I'm trying to get all of it out. So you know when you find something that has all these equivalents in various places, you know it has to be good if it's enjoyed across different cultures and different places on the globe. So that's what we're gonna do with it. So what I do now, and you can see how it's just kind of floating. It's kind of pretty. You can serve it in smaller glasses. We use this as 1 serving. And we have straws. We have in our house, because of Gracie, we have some reusable straws. So yeah, David's handing me one of those. Thanks. He handed me 2. Does that mean he wants me to share? I don't know. He doesn't usually drink things like this. And you can see as I stirred it how it's kind of going down in there and how it looks really pretty. I've got a little drip going on that side of the glass. So I'm going to stir it just a bit more. And again, if you wanted to add sweetener, this would be one of those times that you could add some of your sweetener. There are liquid sweeteners like stevia blends that are made with coffee, and there's or coffee flavor or chocolate flavor or even just vanilla if you wanted to add that in. So let me get all the goodie of the froth off of there. And like I said, I'm excited to see what kinds of desserts that you guys make with the froth, because you can do so much more than coffee. And somebody asked if you could make it warm. Yes, you can. You can warm the almond milk instead of putting it over ice if you're still in a climate where you're enjoying iced coffee. In North Carolina, we have 2 seasons. We have iced coffee and hot coffee, and we've already moved to ice season. So if you make it whipped coffee, whether you call it Dalgona or beaten or frappe, we hope that you enjoy it too.